Hi everybody, this is Diana from So Very Crafty, and we are here today to make this terrific little car trash bag. How cute is this? And it is a fun and functional little project to make, and it can be made in just a few minutes with literally a small amount of fabric. You can probably use scraps that you have in your stash, or if you're a beginner sewist, use remnants that you can buy for half price at your local fabric store. That's what I used for this project, was remnants that I literally got for 50% off. This is a super simple project, and it's great to have a little trash bag in your car. Use the handle to wrap around your shifter knob, and it just sits there, and it's perfect to have. I definitely recommend giving this project a try. So let's get started. Okay, now let's get started on our simple car trash bag. This is truly a beginner sewing project. All we need are 2 different fabrics and some interfacing to create this super simple project. So all we need to do to start out is we are going to cut 2 pieces of our lining fabric, 2 pieces of outer fabric, and 2 pieces of interfacing that measure 10 inches by 10 inches square. Now I have used Pellon Craft Fuse 808 interfacing for this project, and I used this because it is a fairly sturdy interfacing. It's a woven sort of interfacing, and I chose this because I know that my car trash bag is going to get a lot of use and a lot of wear and tear, and because of that I wanted something that's a little sturdy for my car trash bag, and so I chose the Pellon 808. But you can choose whatever interfacing you want, or you don't necessarily have to use interfacing at all if you don't want to, but I really felt like I wanted the extra structure in my bag. If you've never used interfacing before, it is a very simple process. You will see that there is a matte side of the interfacing, and there's also a shiny side. I hope you can see that on the camera. A shiny side to the interfacing. Well, that shiny side is the glue side of the interfacing. And what you're going to do is you are going to take that glue side and put it on the wrong side, or the ugly side, of your fabric piece. And you want to line up all of those raw edges so that they're perfectly situated, and you are going to press with a hot iron all the way around your fabric piece. And I generally do this from the fabric side, and you're going to press holding your iron 10 seconds at a time, more or less, all the way around your piece until the glue on the interfacing has melted and fused with your fabric. And that way you can treat this piece not as 2 pieces anymore, but as one piece. The interfacing and the outer fabric will now be treated as one piece, and you will sew it as one piece. And there won't be any problems sewing through the interfacing. Your needle will go through it just like butter, no problem at all. So what we're going to do right now, before we go on to our next step, is we are going to head over to the iron and we are going to fuse our interfacing. Okay, now we are back and we have fused our interfacing, as you can see, to both of our outer bag pieces. And now what we need to do is move on to our next step, which is we are going to place these 2 outer bag pieces right sides together, and that's the pretty side. If you're not familiar with right sides, It is the pretty side. We are going to place those right sides together, and we are going to sew from the top down the side, over the bottom, and up the other side using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That's a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the bag, but leaving the top open. So we are going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to take care of that. Now, as you can see, we have what looks like a little pouch of our outer fabric. Now we are going to clip off these extra threads, so we don't want those in our project. And we are going to set our outer fabric over to the side. Now we are going to take our lining fabric and we are going to sew down both sides of the lining fabric and just in a little bit of the bottom, but we are going to leave a 2 to 3 inch opening in the bottom of our lining, because we're going to need that when we turn our bag right side out. You will see that in a later step. I'm going to use the white thread that I have been using to show you more closely what that looks like, but we are going to just sew the sides and a little bit of the bottom to leave that opening in our lining. So let's head over to the sewing machine and take care of that. Now, as you can see, we have our lining pouch. I'm going to clip off these threads. But we have left an opening here at the bottom of our lining pieces. So that we will be able to turn our bag right sides out when we need to. Now we have 2 pieces of our bag. We have the outer bag and we have the lining part of the bag. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to box our corners. And you may be asking, well, what does that mean? Well, boxing our corners is going to allow us to give a little bit more structure to our bag, and it is a super simple process to do. All you need to do is to match the side seam to the bottom seam and pin. So let's take our outer fabric, our outer bag, and we're going to open up our seams just like this. You could press these open if you want to, but you don't need to for this project. You can just finger press them. And as you can see, we have our side seam and we have our bottom seam, and we are simply going to match them together so that they are lined up and they form this little point. And you want to make sure that the seams are in fact lined up to the best of your ability, because it will show on the outside whether they are lined up or not. And you want to make sure that they are. And you just want to take a pin and pin right across this point that you've created using the side seam and the bottom seam. And you're going to repeat that for the other side of the bag. So we are going to again just open up our seams place our side seam and our bottom seam so that they are lined up and they form a point. And as you can see, they're forming a little bit of a bottom to this bag, and we're just going to pin right across the center. Now, you are going to measure about 2 inches from the point here down the seam, and you're going to sew right across this line. In fact, if you want, you can take a ruler and a pen and just draw a line right across this point, this pointy area, and you're going to sew a seam just directly across there. And you're going to do that on both sides. You are going to repeat this process for the lining part of the bag as well. This is a little less fidgety because there's no interfacing in this. So you are going to simply line up the side seam and the bottom seam, pin, and sew right across that point, just as you're doing on the outer bag. Very, very simple. One single seam across the point. You're going to do that on both sides of the bottom, and then we're going to come back and do our next step. So let's head over to the sewing machine and take care of that. Okay, now we have our 2 bags, our lining and our outer bag. We're just cutting off these threads. Now the fun part. We are going to turn our outer bag right sides out. And we're just going to turn it so that it's right sides out. Just like that. And we have a little bag just like that. Stands up on its own. And we have our lining bag. But before we do anything with these 2 bags, we have to make our strap. And the way we're going to make our strap is we are simply going to fold the 2 raw edges into the center, and we are going to press them. And once we press them, we are then going to fold them in half so that the raw edges are enclosed, and we have a strap that looks just like this. And once we've done that, we are going to top stitch along both sides of the fabric. So let me just run over to the iron and show you what that looks like. Okay, we have now top stitched our strap, and it's time to add it to our bag. We have our outer bag, as you can see, that's boxed on the corner so it stands up and has some structure to it. We are going to take our strap and we are going to fold it in half, just like this, as you can see. And we are going to place it about halfway in the middle of our little bag. And we're just going to add some pins here. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to take this outer bag and we are going to place it inside the lining. And as you can see, when we do this, the outer bag and the lining will be right sides together, because this is the outside or the wrong side. This is the wrong side. So together these will be right sides together, and we want to match up these side seams. And we want to make sure that these side seams, I like to nest my seams. In other words, I have the lining seam going one way and the outer bag seam going the other way. I find that it gives me a little easier and nicer look at the end rather than opening up the seams. So we are going to then pin those side seams together, and we're going to go to the other side and do exactly the same thing. Making sure that everything is tucked nice and neatly inside there. Have these going in opposite directions so they're nice and nested together, and pin. Now you can pin all along the top here if you like. I'm just going to add a few pins. It's up to you how many pins you want to put, but these bags are the same, exactly the same size, so they should fit nice and snugly. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew all around the top of all of these layers, including along the strap, because we want to make sure that that strap is nice and snug and sewn tight into there. In fact, I would go back and forth across this strap to make sure that it's nice and snug there, and continue right sides together with these raw edges nice and tight, and go all the way around, and then we'll come back and do our next step. Now we're back and we have our top all sewn all the way around. We're going to clip off some of these strings, threads that we have. Seems like there's a lot of them because of the fabric that I've used. Now for the magic. We are going to turn this bag right sides out. We are going to reach in to the where we have our hole in the lining, and we are going to pull our outer bag right through the lining. We're going to pull it, pull it, pull it. Everything's going to come right out. And we have our lining that we're going to tuck right inside our main bag, our outer bag. We have our strap that's hanging from the outer bag and the lining. It's nice and secure because we've sewn it a couple of times. And now we are going to press all around the top here so that it's nice and tight around the top. And then we are going to top stitch all around the top to secure that lining inside our bag so that we don't have to worry about it shifting around too much when we're throwing in our trash. So let's press our bag and top stitch the top rim of the bag. Now we have top stitched our bag all the way around. What I did to make this a little more professional looking is I put blue thread in my bobbin so that I would not have the white thread going around my top stitching on the interior part of my bag. So I have white on the outside and I have blue on the inside of my bag, and I have the straps right there. We have one last step, and that is to close up our hole that we left in the lining. You have multiple options for this. You can use ladder stitch, which is what I prefer. If you're not familiar with ladder stitch, just go on YouTube, type in ladder stitch, and there are some great videos on how to do that. I'm not going to show you how to do it here. You can whip stitch it or slip stitch it, or you can just sew it with machine because it's going to be hidden in the lining. It's not a problem. Once you have sewn your lining closed, just stick it back in the bag, hang it on your shifter knob, and you have finished your nice, super simple, easy to make car trash bag. I would really recommend you give this project a try. It is that simple to make. It takes only a few minutes, and it's really worth it to have it in your car to throw your little trash pieces away. So good luck with this project. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and head over to www.sewverycrafty.com if you want a pictorial version of this this video. It'll give you step-by-step pictures on how this project is done with everything that you need on how to complete it. So definitely give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. This is a great little project to do. Good luck and thank you.